At the University of Regina, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Digital Resource Hub showcases impactful EDI initiatives across the campus.
It's a centralized, accessible resource for our community and post-secondary institutions nationally.
Join us to hear the stories behind the initiatives shaping our campus.
So the Faculty of Social Work, which is just celebrated its 50th anniversary, is centered on EDI. I think it is the foundation of the practice of social work. I mean, historically, I think it would be argued that it wasn't, but the Faculty of Social Work is trying to not only produce research that informs practice, but also engage in that transfer of practice into the fieldwork. So some of our priorities are reflective of the TRC's recommendations, the calls to action. So we are looking at indigenization of practice, decolonial approaches to social work. So we've got multiple researchers who have a history of practice in child welfare, who are also researching child welfare, have those connections and are trying to create best practices for that work. We have folks who are actively engaged in health research. We have multiple individuals who are working with various organizations, researching things like access to resources in rural populations, the North, considerations for food security, poverty, medical assistance in dying. And these might seem like individual social work issues where we might overlook the importance of EDI, but you can't do social work practice without understanding the individual. You have to know the population, you have to know the history, you have to know the individual and build those connections in order to do ethical social work. And we are a profession that's bound by a code of ethics. Our code of ethics has recently been revised, 2025, and built into it is implementing the TRC. Built into it is social justice and advocacy, and a commitment to social change. So EDI really is the foundation of our work. So we have a social work research center that is associated with the faculty, and the center provides regular lunch and learns. So we provide webinars. It's open to anyone to attend. So we have audience that includes the University of Regina faculty, staff, students, but also community members, where the faculty researchers can talk about the collaborative projects they're doing in the community and with the community members. We also have many faculty who have spoken on the speaker series for the Saskatchewan Association of Social Work, which is our regulatory body, do work that supports the continuing education of social work. So social work is a profession where you must, in order to maintain membership and be licensed, continue education and prove that continuation. Our dean has been working on a project of intergroup dialogue and recently did a extensive training that reached multiple faculties, staff, and units at the university on intergroup dialogue, which for Dean Rock's interest is to try and bridge understanding, communication, connection between Indigenous and non-Indigenous individuals. We do have a commitment to connect to ensure that EDI is integrated in each element of our work. It is the essence of our work. It's embedded in every meeting, in every conversation we have. Every decision we make is how does this support the goals of social work practice, which is founded on social justice philosophies. So yes, but I think beyond the importance of having a committee is that it needs to be integrated. It can't be isolated to a committee. It has to be a model, it has to be an approach where EDI is not an add-on, it is woven It's embedded. I'm a guest on Treaty 4. And one of the things that I really observed when I came to the University of Regina and started working with the faculty was that connection to community. It is not just about publications, about impact factor, about grants and being the most prestigious. It is about doing the work on the ground that's making that change. So like I mentioned, there are many of the faculty members have decades of practice skills in addition to their academia. They are former child welfare workers, including our dean. They are counselors. They are folks who worked grassroots in the communities. They are folks who led anti-racist initiatives on the ground. And our faculty is quite diverse. Despite being small, we represent a number of cultures, a number of practice backgrounds. And that diversity, I think, speaks to an intentionality around EDI and how EDI is represented in the faculty, but also our ability to do the work because those connections and realities are represented in a way that is not disconnected, not hierarchical, and very much relevant and current. We have multiple folks right now who are working, myself included, to respond to various bills that impact the lives, such as the Parents' Right Bill, and how is that impacting trans and gender nonconforming youth. It is current, it is collaborative, and it is humbling. So I think I've been working in EDI for a very long time, and one of the things that I've encountered is this challenge of moving beyond theoretical concept of diversity and inclusion and putting it into practice. So when we're measuring outcomes, we might look at numbers, we might look at change and measurable elements. Some of it is not as measurable, at least not quantitatively. If we kind of look at the qualitative elements and you receive the feedback that the community feels like it has been seen, or the community feels like it has an avenue to take space and to share, that is a win. That is a positive outcome. You must understand one another. The outcomes are often emotional. They're often emotional, and they're often very meaningful. But a challenge might be that we are looking for numbers. We're looking for big, bold letters that, highlight that this is the return you want to see. Who gets to decide what that return is, right? Like, that in itself is a research project. A lot of the faculty are looking into pedagogies and how is it being impacted continually by ongoing colonial approaches to research, to education, to our work. So I think I struggle to answer what the impact is because it's not something that is easy to verbalize. It is something you feel. I think a major challenge is felt by many, which is how do we allocate our resources? How do we allocate our funding? What do we prioritize as relevant or the most relevant? I think some of the challenges are that we are seeing more challenges than we are able to respond to. And for social work in particular, we may not be as glamorous to some as medicine, as psychology. And that, I think, is a very patriarchal, colonial kind of approach. we are bringing, social work is founded on a Western colonial philosophy. That is its roots. That is a challenge. That is something that we have to continuously be actively aware of and find ways to modify, which is why we must have continuing education. We must have continuing research. We must be able to adapt, evolve, and respond and grow. We are certainly a profession that has done harm. I think my call to action would be a reflection on Dr. Beverly Tatum's work and looking at racism, looking at the issues of equity, and recognizing that in order to make change, we need to actively walk against the forces that are pushing us back. And Dr. Tatum's visual is that imagine that you're on a moving walkway. If you stand still, you will still participate in social injustice. You must walk at a speed that is greater than that force to be able to make those changes. And we will make the greatest changes if we do them together. So that would be my hope.